Hello and welcome. This is Heavy Business. I'm Aaliyah,
And I'm Curtis.
and today we are here with the Ryan Williams of Metal Blade Records. Hi, Ryan. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much for coming back on. For those who have been following us since the beginning, you may have heard Ryan on episodes back in the end of 2021, but he's back to give us a refresher course on pitching to the label and things like that. So we don't need, I don't think we need really the whole summary of who you are because you've given that twice now.
Sure.
So let's just dive right in and start with a kind of summary of what Metal Blade in particular is looking for in emerging artists.
Well, I'll just speak generally, and I think it'll definitely apply to Metal Blade, but it'll probably apply to any label you're thinking about pitching to.
Yeah.
As I said before, Metal Blade doesn't sign a ton of bands. We're pretty small, but it's just good across the board advice, I think, and I hope. I do get pitched a lot of stuff, so I guess I see a lot of what not to do. So I could speak on that for sure.
We definitely like to hear what not to do as well.
Yeah. Okay, so I think the first thing to think about if you're submitting your band or demos to a label is, are you submitting to the right labels? I get a lot of stuff from, I mean, if you know anything about Metal Blade, you know, it's heavy metal, it's death metal, it's kind of classic metal. There's some prog. It's pretty clear if you look through our roster what kind of stuff we do, right?
Yeah.
But I'll still get stuff from like a Latin pop band or a singer-songwriter or just stuff that would never be on Metal Blade. And it might even be great stuff, but it's just, we're not the right label. So that's like, before you do anything, you should be looking at the roster list of the label and making sure that your music is at least in the similar genre. You could see them putting your band out, etc. I know that's really kind of basic, but you'd be surprised at how many people don't really. They just send it out to anybody who's a record label and hope something sticks. And I don't think that's doing anyone any favors. It's wasting your time. It's wasting the label rep's time. Okay. The next thing is, I would say, look up, do like a half hour to an hour of research on how to write an effective business email. You can find this stuff. There's YouTube videos on it. There's blogs about it. You know, it should not be more than 3 paragraphs. It should be very to the point. Things that I'm looking for. Who are you? Where are you located? Is this a real band? Is this just a project band? And I know no bands want to call themselves a project, even if they are. Everybody thinks of themselves as, yes, we're a real band. We just need the right opportunity and we'll be out there playing every day. It's like, be realistic. If you have a real job, if everyone in the band has kids, if you only can play, you know, a few weekends a year, you're probably not ready to approach Century Media or Nuclear Blast or Metal Blade or these bigger kind of professional labels. If you are in that category of, and there's nothing wrong with being a smaller band and being a more of a project or just a weekend band, that's awesome too. But be realistic about what your goals are and where you could see your band going, and start with maybe smaller boutique labels first. And then, you know, if you really get some momentum, if you're like, your band's really doing well, you're popping off, then think about maybe going to the bigger labels. So the right size too. If you only have 1,000 people on Instagram and you only have 100 monthly listeners on Spotify, these bigger labels are probably not going to have the time of day for you. So just be very realistic about where you're at in your career.
I have a quick question just to ask about that, Ryan. Just sorry to interrupt, but do you actually look at the smaller labels then that are putting stuff out? And if so, are there certain ones that you keep an eye on, out of curiosity?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give away too much.
Not naming names. I'm just asking. Yeah,
absolutely. There's like I have a list of kind of boutique or smaller labels that I look at, and even some of them we have relationships with, where it's almost like a feeder label where, you know, they'll take a baby band and get them to kind of a smaller mid-range level, and then maybe they're ready to go on to Metal Blade or something bigger. So absolutely, I think it's just like, you know, how there's amateur sports and then there's pro leagues. Like sometimes you can find some really good talent from the amateurs and bring them up. So absolutely, I look at that stuff all the time. And I have certain labels that I really like what they already do. And I don't ever want to poach bands or steal bands. That's, I'm about the community, and I'm trying to be a good citizen of our scene here. So I'm not trying to come in and like poach bands.
No, but we were just talking to literally last night we were speaking to someone from a smaller boutique label, and she said that's her goal.
Yeah.
Is to build up bands to the point where they can go on and sign to a bigger label. That's like her goal.
Right. And even Metal Blade, I would say we're kind of a medium tier label. Like I want to take a band and get them to where a major label wants to sign them. So it's, it works all the way up and down, I would say.
It was just an interesting concept. You brought it up, so I just was curious about that.
No, it's a great point.
I cut you off though. You were in the middle of saying something.
Yeah, continuing on to like what you're expecting from
no. That's so. I think I mentioned like who you are. Another really good thing to mention is if you have some relation to another artist that's already on the label, or maybe some connection personally or whatever. Mention that, mention that our drummer is also the drummer in this band that is on your label already, or some other connection that might solidify it in that A&R person's mind that, okay, you're in the scene. I know you through this person. You're not just a completely random person. And those little connections can really help you stand out as just someone who's already like kind of established. So definitely mention that. Do you have a manager or booking agent involved? Definitely mention that in your email. If you're touring at all, even if it's just small regional stuff, mention your touring. Again, it's hard to jam all this stuff into 3 paragraphs, but like I said, look up how to write an effective email. There's stuff out there. In fact, even, I don't know if you guys have been seeing all this Chat GPT stuff. You can literally take an email, paste it into Chat GPT and say, condense this down, make it shorter and effective for me, and it'll spit out a short, effective email for you. So use those kind of tools. And don't write a really long email because it will not get read. I'll just tell you that right now.
That's a super pro tip.
Yeah. What else? Make sure links are very clear. Like write your 3 paragraphs about who you are, what your goals are, if you're a real band, where you see your band going in the next 5 to 10 years. And then link to your stuff. Give me a link to your Spotify. Give me a link to your Bandcamp. Give me a link to your Instagram, TikTok, hopefully. YouTube. Bands really neglect YouTube. I probably said this on the last podcast. YouTube is the #1 music discovery platform globally.
It is, right?
And people, and especially people in other countries and around the world, South America, Asia, whatever, a lot of times they go to find new music on YouTube where maybe we're not used to doing that here. So work YouTube, even if you just put up some short videos or your songs on there. Start treating it like every other social media, and that's something that Vince at Metal Blade talks about a lot, and I think he's totally right. Don't attach Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to interject really quickly. If you're posting Instagram shorts and you're posting those shorts to TikTok, just go ahead and post that to YouTube shorts as well, because
1000%
format.
You've already got that format, vertical format. Use it. Absolutely. The other thing, don't send big attachments. Even if it's small MP3s, it just takes up room in your inbox, and it takes up room in my inbox. I don't want to download something that potentially has viruses from someone I don't know about. So a link to SoundCloud or a link to your Dropbox is okay. You can stream via Dropbox. I'd prefer to SoundCloud or something I can stream. I want to be able to hear your music really quickly. Ideally, even just to your Spotify profile where your music already lives. But a lot of times people want to include their newer music that's maybe not out yet. So try to do that in an elegant way that's easy for someone to just click and listen. They don't have to download. They don't have to go through a whole rigmarole to hear your stuff. Make it easy for the person. And I think that kind of wraps it up, unless there's something I'm missing.
Cool. So what kind of metrics do you look at to see if a band is ready to be signed?
Yeah, this is a tough one because people hate to hear it,
but they need to hear it.
I know, but they really push back against it. And it's the #1 thing I look for is Spotify monthly listeners.
I'm sure.
And I know in other territories, like in Europe, maybe Deezer's bigger, or like I said, maybe YouTube's bigger. Maybe you have a huge following on Bandcamp and your Spotify isn't that big. Work on that Spotify monthly listener number and don't cheat it. Don't try to buy listens or whatever, but really try to, do social posts, do whatever you can to get that number up, because that's I think the best quick metric that I can look at and see, are people listening to your music? Do you have an organic listener base started? Even with the best music ever, it's extremely hard to start at zero. If you've got 500 monthly listeners, a label's going to look at that and say, that's not much income for us. How much can we really put forward for an advance for that? How much do we want to take a gamble that we're going to be able to take those numbers and, double, triple, quadruple them? It's not easy to do. So try to get that fan base up. And it also helps you out, because then when you approach labels and you have 20,000 monthly listeners, now you have a little bit more power for negotiation, and you can demand a little more money. Whereas that if you're sitting at zero, I mean, you've got to take what you can get as far as a deal, because it's a total crapshoot for the label.
Question really quick. Sorry to keep interrupting you, because I hope you can keep your train of thought. No. But regarding Spotify monthly listeners, here's an issue that, like, right when you release your album, you're going to have a lot more, and those kind of taper off over time.
Absolutely.
So what do you think are the best ways to kind of retain that monthly listenership?
No, that's a great point. Keep singles or something coming out like every 6 weeks. Get a cover. Do a different version of your song. Do a remix. Write a new song. Keep something coming out that you can keep, because it's a slow burn, and it's a gradual progression. So you don't want to just release an album, you promote the hell out of it for 2 weeks, and then you got nothing going on for 6 months. That's going to do exactly what you said. You're going to have this huge peak. Maybe people like it, and then they're going to fall off. You want to try to extend that and keep that momentum rolling over a long period of time. Sustained promotion. It's not easy, but if you just put something on the calendar, every 6 weeks we're going to drop something new that people can go and listen to, and in between we're going to promote little things each week, and you got to just keep that momentum going and not just be a big dump of stuff and then you're silent. So that would be the way to get around that. And I also look at trends over time, and I'll go back and look at, well, okay, you peaked here, you had this many. So it's hard though, but yeah, try to keep it consistent instead of having those big peaks and valleys, I would say.
So I wanted to quickly interject just to an earlier thing where you mentioned about the EPK being sent to you. So
yeah.
How long do you actually give a track before you turn it off and say, I'm not interested?
I'll try to listen. Intros are a really big thing in metal, right? A lot of the first tracks of metal albums will have like a minute of like an ambient, like, ooh, it's raining, it's spooky, and then the song is going to come in, okay? And I get it. It's like people like that. It is a thing. It's a trope. It's how a lot of metal records are. I'll usually I'll skip right to the second track and I'll start listening to that. Fair. Because I know that intro is going to be there. I try to at least give the first 2 minutes of a track a full listen, get to the first chorus if the song is structured in a chorus kind of way. Mm-hmm. Here for production, I'm a big stickler on production, so I like to listen to how the mix is, how the people are playing. Is it tight? Is it sloppy? Is it catchy? And then are the vocals catchy? And is there some kind of hook in chorus? So I know some people will only listen to 30 seconds or 15 seconds, though. I try to get through whole songs if I can, or at least a couple minutes.
Fair. Leah, I took us off topic. I'm sorry.
Oh, no need to apologize. We're weaving through a road of topics here. It's a journey. So after the Spotify monthly listens, what are some other factors you look at?
Instagram would be the second one I looked at, but TikTok's kind of slowly.
What about TikTok?
And I'm an old guy now. I'm not on TikTok, but I understand how important it is, and that's where things are really taking off. I mean, we had the example of a band that I signed, Entheos. Howie Mandel did a stitch with Cheney Krebs TikTok, and it got millions of views. So those are the kind of opportunities that you have paying attention and being on the newest social media. I know, for old guys like me, it's like, I don't want to mess with that. If you're in a band, you've got to be where the people are. And right now, the young people, especially, are on TikTok. So I'm looking at Instagram next, TikTok. I don't really care about Facebook anymore, but I get some people have big followings there. It's cool if you have a Twitter or a Twitch or all those things too, but I think Instagram is still kind of the main one for now anyway.
Fair. Regarding TikTok, do you feel like, because I'm in a symphonic metal band, and I was just looking last night at TikTok, and there's really not very much of a scene on TikTok for symphonic metal. So do you think there are, and
the first one
specific, well, yeah, but are there specifics?
Yeah,
we are on TikTok.
Yeah.
But are there like specific genres that, well, I guess maybe we could frame it like that. If you're in a genre that isn't as much represented on TikTok, what do you think are some strategies you can use to get your stuff viewed other than using a hashtag that nobody's following?
I think showing that you're really in the community and commenting on other people's stuff, replying to DMs, not just posting stuff and turning off the app, like really being on there and showing that you're in the community. I think replying and comments and all that kind of stuff really do matter, and it shows people that you care and that you are really there. And I think it's great that you guys are on TikTok, but like if you're, let's say you're like a brutal death metal band and you don't see any other brutal death metal bands on TikTok, well, to me that's a huge opportunity where you can like get in first and kind of get those people following you. And it's a time thing, right? Like if you're the first one in, that means you're building longer than the other people and you beat them to the punch. So I think TikTok's a huge opportunity right now for a lot of different genres to get in and solidify themselves before it's oversaturated.
I had a quick question on how do you kind of determine if a band has mainly fake followers and listens? Do you have a strategy for that?
I don't really have a good way to tell that, to be 100% honest. I mean, sometimes you just kind of get the vibe of like, I've never heard of these guys and they have this many followers and it seems fishy. Sometimes on Facebook, I remember you could kind of go through their followers and you would see a bunch of people who had like nothing on their profile and you could kind of tell that way.
Yeah.
But these days I don't have a good way to tell that. So I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
I always, what I do on Instagram personally is I just look through the names, and if it's all like, suspicious countries.
Yes.
Or if they have like 50 million numbers after their username.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes even those, like if you go to make a new Twitter account right now, it'll like put your first name and a bunch of numbers. So it's hard to tell. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, basically that's my only thing for Instagram. I don't know how you do it on TikTok or Twitter, but
yeah, I don't think it's a huge problem. I think you can kind of smell that stuff out, but it's a great question. I don't know.
Fair enough. Aaliyah, back over to you.
So we've gone through the social media. You mentioned touring. I kind of want to ask a little more deeply about that.
Yeah.
You had mentioned on a prior episode that when you are pitched by a band, you don't really care to hear about whether they've opened the local tour date for a big band.
Everyone has, yes.
Right. So I guess the question is, you think bands should be booking their own tours right now?
Yeah, and I know it's really hard. I know that it's not easy. I know that gas is expensive. I know that vehicles are expensive. I know people have to get time off work. I mean, Well, and promoting in a city that you don't live in, that's a skill that a lot of bands don't have. Yeah. Like advertising on social media, for example, that's something I can figure out how to do, but not everybody knows how to do that. Totally. And it's hard to get networked into enough people to do a regional tour even. But the bands that are showing me that they're at least trying and that they're willing to take the risk and maybe go out and even lose money, I mean, that's the kind of dedication and like gumption, I guess, that you need, that I'm looking for. I want to see that a band's willing. And most bands will say like, oh, we'll quit our jobs. This is the main thing. We don't care. But when it really comes down to it and you've got to like decide between paying your bills or going on tour, most people are going to pay their bills, and I get that. But if you want to really make it in this underground kind of niche scene that we all live in with a finite amount of fans and a finite amount of money out there and a finite amount of venues and all this stuff, like I want to see that you're willing to really sacrifice, and it's not for everybody. So I don't hold anything against any bands that aren't out there losing money or just killing themselves on the road. But the ones that I do see doing it, I go, okay, these guys are serious. And I can tell that they're willing to sacrifice for the band.
Do you see any like replicable behaviors from bands that are successful in booking their own regional tours? Like tips that other bands could
Yeah,
pull from.
sure. Just look at the local shows that are going on around you within like a 50 or 100-mile radius, and find out who those promoters are. Start trying to trade shows with them. Find out who the other bands are in your scene. Trade shows with them, and just get networked in as much as you can, and help people when they come to your town, and then you'll find that that's reciprocated. So it's not easy, and I get it, but networking, I guess, would be the answer.
100%. Yeah. Agreed. Curtis?
You kind of answered this already, but I just to be perfectly clear, when someone submits to you for the label, how closely are you looking at which bands they've opened for, who they've played with?
Not super closely, because like I said, I think it's pretty easy to buy onto a big package tour that comes through your town, or be the local opener. So, maybe I don't really care that much. Now, if you got on a tour with a band like that, if they took you out for a couple weeks, then that really piques my interest, because now I see that they care about you enough to take you on the tour. So cool. It's cool. I get it. I totally get the need or the want to be like, we played with this big band, they came in and we opened the show, and wasn't that so cool? But I don't know how much it really
and it's still a good tool. It's still a good tool, and
absolutely.
it's a great way to expand your fan base, and it's a great way to connect and network with the promoters and other bands. But
yes, it doesn't prove to me that you're like something big, I guess.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah,
that's what I was more wondering about. And then another question I had, just back to social media super quickly, and then we can go back onto this other topic. Sure. If a band is trying to interact with you on social media, what's the biggest turnoff that they can do, like you personally?
I think this is the thing where people are really, really blowing it, honestly, because I have my Twitter, I have my Instagram and my email signature, and the smart bands will connect with me on there, and then I start to see what they're up to more.
Yeah.
But a lot of people forget to try to do that. Like for example, I'll get tons of DMs in the Metal Blade Instagram, right? But I don't actually get a lot of DMs right to me, or so I think just connect with people that you like. Like if you think Kurt Blue's a great mixer, follow him on social media. Maybe he'll follow you back. I think people are missing the boat on, and maybe there's some people out there that are totally punishing everybody, and I'm sure that's happening too. But I think people are missing the boat on connecting with more people in the industry via social media, and not to punish them, but just to show that they're out there and they understand who the players are.
Yeah, it's surprisingly easy to connect with people. It's just,
and I get back to people all the time on social media. I mean, it's easy and fun for me. So yeah, I mean, and especially if you're a band where you think that maybe you're not ready to do a formal pitch email to the label, like just DM someone who works at the label like a link to your music and say, hey, just want you to check this out. And it might be an easy way to get your name kind of tossed around some offices and stuff like that. So
what would make it so that way it would hinder them? Like if they reached out to you, what would be an example of a way a band could screw that up, other than the obvious of being a douche? You know what I mean?
Yeah, being a douche, being entitled, sending too many weird links, following up too much. I feel like following up is totally cool, but if you're pestering someone like every few days or every week, I think that can turn people off for sure.
Agreed. Cool. Back to you, Aaliyah.
So I get there's a ton of bands that really still glamorize being on a label and don't really understand what's on it. But there's this other there's another subset of musicians that are kind of more taking it more independent and like don't feel the need to sign with a label.
Totally.
And I think that maybe the plot of like what a label does for a band and what they can do that bands can't do on their own might be getting lost in the plot somewhere. So can you speak a little bit to that?
This is a great point, and I'm really glad you brought it up. I think some bands just assume that we got to get signed. That's the only way to be successful. And no one's going to hear our music. No one's going to care about us until we get signed. And I think a lot of bands instead should work on building themselves independently for much longer before they even think about going to labels. And like I said, then that gives you more leverage to get a better deal when you do. If you're at the point where, or maybe you're a person who just likes managing things, you like numbers, you like the books, you like sending emails, you're super organized, stay independent, build the band yourself, become self-sufficient, do everything you can possibly do on your own. And then if you get to the point where it's like, oh my God, I'm so busy with this stuff, I can't handle all this. I need to figure out who's going to distribute this record in Asia or Australia, and I don't have contacts there. And, I'm getting these offers and I can't really field them all. And if it's becoming too much for you, then maybe it's time to go to a label or to like start looking for a manager or to start getting more professional. But I think a lot of bands, they want to jump right to, we need to get signed. And it's instead like, let's build something and let's get labels. What you really want is a label chasing you and going, I see you guys are out there. And I'm talking to a few bands right now that are like this, where it's like, I see you guys are out there busting your ass. You're not coming to me, I'm coming to you. That's ideally what you want. So it's a great point. And I think a lot of people have lost kind of the plot on that. So you're totally right. And I totally respect not signing with a label at all. It's not right for everybody. If you are the type of person that wants total control and you don't want to give up a piece of your band, then do it. But I think a lot of the services that a label can offer as far as distribution, PR, accounting, all that kind of stuff, that most of the time, and me, I'll say this even for myself, I'm not like a numbers guy. I'm not a huge accounting guy. So to me, it's like, yes, let the label do all this stuff and just tell me what it is. But it's not necessary. So yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the control element, and I know I'm referring back again to another previous episode that you were on. You mentioned that when bands sign, they should expect to get some feedback about where to record their record, some things to change about the mix, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I guess, can you speak a bit to the benefit of that and like why bands might want to give that kind of control up?
Yeah, because I think it's easy to get stuck in your own box, where you think that your stuff is awesome, your lyrics are awesome, your packaging's awesome, but a label, hopefully, or music professionals are seeing a much broader picture. Just as an aside, a quick example, like I think a few years ago, I was seeing like a ton of albums that had something like a basic concept of the world is burning. And I kept seeing this theme like over and over and over with like song titles, album covers. And you might not know that there's already someone that has a concept album like that just came out 6 months ago, but your label is hopefully looking at all these things and going like, this concept's played out. I've seen 10 albums with the same kind of album art and the same kind of like lyrical content. And not that you have to change, but I think it's good to get kind of a broader perspective on what's going on in the market. Are you really as original as you thought? Is your mix up to the standard of what's going on right now? And sometimes just getting an outside opinion on something like your art or your mix or your songwriting. And listen, as far as I'm going, I'm not telling anybody on the label what to write or how to do anything. But if they ask my opinion, I'll definitely give it. And I think it can be valuable just to get some outside ears and eyes on your stuff to tell you kind of if you're falling into tropes or if you're doing something that's really been repeated a million times, or if you're really, if you need a little course correction on some small tweaks. But I'm never trying to dictate anything to an artist. I don't want to make it come off like that, but just giving them outside ears and eyes.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of bands can be a little apprehensive about, but totally. I don't think, I think there's reason for it for sure.
Yeah.
I had a different question on a different subject, Aaliyah. So, okay, good. So just kind of going back on, because we only got like 9 minutes. I didn't want to get this off. We were going to talk about Twitch.
Oh, yeah.
Briefly.
Oh, yeah.
So this was kind of my spot to remind Aaliyah to go into that with you.
Thank you, Curtis. Mm-hmm. You mentioned this in the social media or sort of things you were looking at too. But yeah, can you give your opinions on bands going in doing a Twitch channel and what that could entail?
I think this is another just like YouTube, and this can actually play into a YouTube channel really easily. They play together really well, and you can also use YouTube for live streaming instead of Twitch. So the exact specifics aside, I think that live streaming is a hugely underutilized tool right now. I think some Mike Leon from some Soulfly is great at it. If you want to see an example of a great Twitch channel and how to do it, it's a hugely underutilized tool. It actually can be real money for you too. And in a world where everyone's struggling to make a buck, and it's hard to, especially in the music business, it's hard to really get paid. It can be not only a great promotional tool for you, but it can actually become real income. And we've seen Herman Lee be absolutely a star on Twitch.
Yeah.
Sorry, my dog's barking. So look into it. I know it's hard. There's a big kind of technological hurdle to overcome. It's like, how do I get my interface hooked up with my streaming software so there's not.
Oh, Ryan is frozen. Getting the interface hooked up with the streaming software can definitely be a complication there. And getting all the right gear. I think sometimes people feel like they have to reach a certain level of video and audio quality before they can even start diving into it.
Yep. I think we lost Ryan though. So Aaliyah, what do you want to do at this point?
Pause
it?
Yeah, can you pause it?
Yes. All good.
So speaking of technical glitches, we just lost some internet, but we are back to continue talking about Twitch really briefly. One thing I wanted to say is that I feel like a lot of musicians have this idea, or they feel like they need to reach some sort of quality threshold before they get onto Twitch. And maybe they need to, maybe they do. What do you think about that?
I think, again, start doing it. If it's a little rough at the beginning, no one's going to care. People want to talk to you. They want to interact with you. They don't care if you don't have the perfect lighting or the perfect sound yet, or maybe you're just figuring out as you go. Just go for it. You'll figure it out. You'll get better over time. And it's all about practice and getting comfortable. And you're going to need a bunch of crappy streams with 3 people watching while you're figuring out the technical stuff. And then by the time you have 100 people watching, you can be more professional. You can get your lighting. You can go back and you can readdress. Just start doing it. Don't be afraid. That's the biggest thing. It's a great point you bring up. People are so scared that, oh, I don't have it perfect yet. I can't start until it's right. Just start doing it. Start practicing. Start looking at what other people are doing. Even if you're just talking, literally, you could walk around your town and talk about what you're doing with your day. And people love that stuff. They just want to connect with you. They want to talk with you. They want to get to know you. And in my opinion, Twitch is a great way to do that, or YouTube, or whatever streaming service you want to do.
Is there anything a band could do, other than the obvious of, again, being a douche or whatever, that would totally turn a label off if they did something like that?
I guess maybe if you were doing like super like political stuff, or
Okay.
you're having some like super spicy takes on something, and it's like, oh, this guy's like, and I get that some people, that's what their thing is, and they want to talk about politics and they want to talk about this and that, but it could be like a third rail situation where it's like, I don't know if I want to get like involved with this guy who's got all this controversy around him. That would be the one thing, I guess, that could turn a label off.
Yeah, politics is a weird one because bands either embrace it like publicly and that's their thing, or else they got that one guy that.
Yep.
But anyways.
Yep. And I never want to tell anybody what not, or if that's your thing and you want to go and talk about that stuff all day and that's what you're really passionate about, do it. But you might turn certain people off.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so other than that, what's something that a band could do that would really stick out to a label guy that they're trying to get the attention of?
In a positive way.
In a positive way, sorry.
Play near me and invite me to the show and say, hey, come check us out. We're playing in your town. I mean, I know LA, like, if you're on the East Coast, it's not that easy just to come play in LA, but or be like, hey, we're playing this fest out here. I got your name on the list. If you want to come out, stuff like that goes a long way. Seeing a band live is another thing where it's over the last few years, especially, it hasn't been easy, but I think that's a big help. And if you can really blow someone away with your live performance, I think that goes a long way.
Interesting. A lot of bands are kind of, they don't really want to do that because they don't want to make make it uncomfortable. So how could they invite you to a show without it being weird, I guess?
Oh, just be like, hey, we're playing this tour. It's coming near you. It's on this date. We'd love for you to come out. You're on the list.
Easy.
Or, yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. And that's like amazing to me, because I'm like, then I don't have to ask, well, hey, can I get on the list? Or
yeah,
hey, this and that. It's like, just make it easy for the other person,
Perfect. So Leah, we got about 5 minutes left. What else do you want to ask, Ryan?
Well, the final question, I think, could be about this X factor you mentioned. And you said that, obviously when you're looking at bands, you want the audio quality to be really good. You want them to have their aesthetic down, and then they need to have some kind of X factor. Can you talk a little bit about some examples of what that could be?
Well, I'll just mention my fallen brother Trevor for this one. Trevor Sternad was like the best interviewee I've ever seen in my life. Yep. If you have something like that where you are a great speaker, if you're a super well-known person in your scene, I mean, it's hard to say because it's an X factor, right? So by nature, there's no like one definition. Maybe you have like someone in the band who's like, I don't know, famous in another business, or I don't know. It's hard to say.
Sure, that's fair.
You know what I
It's a
mean?
tough
Like,
question, I know.
it's something where you have something that makes you stand out from other bands, or yeah, I don't know. It's hard to really.
How can
nail
they
it
know
down.
if they have anything that would qualify as an X factor?
Ooh.
Maybe asking people that they know.
Are people kind of chasing you as far as like, is your fan base? Do you have some kind of fan base that's really rabid, even if it's just very small? Do you have some like super fans that are like obsessed with you? That's a good, I'd say, gauge for if you have something that's an X factor that's really engaging to people.
Cool.
Fair enough. Sounds good. I'm going to wrap us up. Thank you so much for this interview. This was a lot of great information. Anybody wanting to listen to more of Ryan, look back in episodes 156 and 196 from October and December 2021, and you can hear some more details from back then. Thanks again so much, Ryan, for coming on the pod.
Thank you, guys.
And everyone listening, I hope you learned something helpful today. I definitely did. And until next time, make like a bull and throw those horns up.